people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
We'll start with this. The latest comments from Claressa Shields in reference to her own previous comments about Angel Reese winning a BET Athlete Award. She said, I'm not joining in on any hate train when it comes to Angel Reese. I have mad respect for her and all the other female athletes that excel in their sport. As for my earlier comments, I am allowed to express my feelings. I was shocked I didn't win. I was under the impression the category was graded on accolades of your sport. It's okay to be a competitor. You see, this is what she does. This is what she does with her contemporaries in boxing, and now this is what she's doing outside of boxing. She stirs the pot, then acts like she's not the one holding the spoon. She says that she's not joining in on any hate train towards Angel Reese, but in so many words, you said you didn't think she deserved that award. You think it should have went to you. And for what? What has Claressa Shields done all year that would have warranted her getting that award? Oh, well, she did fight a 42-year-old with only 5 professional fights that had never fought in a 10-rounder for a couple of vacant titles in a barren weight class. She should have gotten an award for that. She's mad that she didn't. People tell me that Angel Reese isn't even that good a player. My previous video regarding this subject, that's what some people were saying, that it's not a meritocracy. Angel only got that award because it's a popularity contest. Oh, if it's a popularity contest, then Claressa definitely shouldn't have got it because she's not popular. She's not popular amongst boxing fans. She's not going to be popular outside of the boxing sphere. That makes sense. I mean, any chance she's had to further her own profile was dashed by bridges that she burned. If she didn't spend so much time taking shots at Jake Paul for no good reason, because there was never no good reason for it, who knows? MVP might have picked her up, and MVP may have promoted her in all the ways that Dimitri Salita could not, paid her in all the ways that Dimitri Salita could not. She would have you believe that she's making millions per fight? She's got a fight coming up. Nobody knows who she's fighting. I mean, unless you're a hardcore boxing fan, and I mean a really hardcore boxing fan, odds are you don't know the first thing about Lonnie Daniels. And this is within the boxing sphere. This fight does not move the needle in spite of how much Claressa likes to toot her own horn. A defense of her undisputed crown in a barren weight class that nobody watches and virtually no one campaigns in, and for this, she believes that she is the greatest woman of all times. More of the same. Reading through her comments, you get the sense that she's walking back what she said about Angel Reese because when she said it, she got some backlash for it. I mean, I don't watch the WNBA, but wouldn't surprise me if Angel Reese has more fans, more than Claressa.
Just Boots is moving up.
What?
I mean, that's, unfortunately after the Stanionis fight, he had his, team around him, the doctors, the tests, and what they're basically saying is Boots is underperforming to his capabilities. You saw him on Fight Week. Like, it doesn't take a genius to see that it's hard work, right? And the amazing thing is, he did that to Stanionis at 50% of his physical capabilities.
Eddie doesn't sound too enthused that in many ways Boots is now forced to move up. He cannot ignore the message that his body is sending him. But why would that bother Eddie? Why would Eddie be disappointed by that? I think Eddie wanted to deliver Undisputed to Boots. He wanted to get him there. Now he's moving up to 154, and he's supposed to be back in either August or September, and then Virgil Ortiz right after, because they said he won't be available that soon. Virgil? Now this is a fight that Boots already rejected because he said he was in pursuit of Undisputed at 147. Now he's in pursuit of Virgil at 154. I think the fight with Virgil will move the needle more than any unification match left at welterweight.
What?
Simple question. What fight do you think is more intriguing, and what fight do you think people would be more excited to see? Boots versus Barrios, or Boots versus Ortiz? Boots versus Norman, or Boots versus Ortiz? You know the answer. Undisputed, in a legacy sense, does more for Boots' legacy. That was the chance to make history, but in the here and now, in the moment, the Ortiz fight would move the needle more than any of those fights would. So now that Boots is moving up in weight and set to vacate the 2 alphabet titles he currently holds, it's conceivable that Rolly Romero, of all people, will be elevated to full WBA welterweight champion, while the winner of Crocker versus Donovan 2, ordered by the IBF, could crown a new IBF welterweight champion. Just like that, the landscape at 147 once again changes. But is it changing for the better? Next week in Japan, reigning WBO champion Brian Norman will be defending the brown belt against Jin Sasaki. If he wins and retains the WBO title, quick question. How many guys do you think are going to make him an offer to unify titles like Boots made him an offer to unify titles? Do you think the winner of Pacquiao versus Barrios is going to do that? Do you think Rolly is going to do that? No. See, this was what I was talking about last year. The Normans have got it in their head that because Brian is young, that they have time, and that they can play with their time, that they can play with Boots' time and Eddie Hearns' time, Matchroom's time, rejecting offers for money they don't even make. If Top Rank gave a flamingo-shaped fuck about you, they wouldn't be shipping you out to Japan right now. They would have had Jin Sasaki come to you. That's what they would have did. They were never going to put the money up for a fight between you and Boots. The only one who made a play to do that was Matchroom. You pissed on it. Pissed and shitted on it. But do you think any of these other kids that moved up to the welterweight division right now give a rat's furry ass about your belt? Do you think Ryan does? Do you think Devin does? Broly? I can tell you that they don't. I can tell you that for the foreseeable future, you're going to be a member of the Who Needs Ya Club. You're telling yourself that you've got a title, you've got a belt, you're WBO champion. You know who else was WBO champion? Demetrius Andre. Nobody gave a damn about him. I'm telling you, none of the somebodies at welterweight give a damn about you, and the only one that did, he's moving up. So you missed the boat. You missed your opportunity. Any real opportunity to make real money. Well, it's moving up with Boots. What? For a long time, a lot of people felt that Boots' abilities won't truly be tested until he goes to junior middleweight. And so, we are on the eve of getting those answers as soon as August or September. Is it possible that Boots could be one of the fighters that fights on Canelo versus Crawford's undercard? Maybe. So IBF champion Bakram Murtazaliev take to his social media and post September 13th, the fight date for Canelo versus Crawford. Is he hinting that he may be boxing on that undercard? And if he is, who's he gonna fight? I wouldn't mind it at all if it were Jaron Ennis, if his first fight at the weight were against the reigning champion, a bogeyman, in Bakram Murtazaliev. A few weeks ago, the story was that Boots rejected a fight with Teofimo Lopez, and on that predication, some of Teofimo's fans chose to run with the narrative that Boots is afraid of Lopez. But if he goes up to 54 and fights a guy like Bakram, that kills that narrative. You don't duck Teofimo to fight somebody like Bakram. And he might fight Bakram because the other titles are not immediately accessible to him. Sebastian Fundora is fighting Tim Kazoo for the second time. He's not available. The vacant brown belt, the vacant WBO title, Xander Zayas is fighting for that. The only champion who's ready and able and available is Bakram. It's Bakram. Because Boots spent such a long time at 147, remember, this guy actually has a lot of fights. I don't imagine that his junior middleweight campaign is going to last all that long. This is a big kid, and before you know it, he will be busting at the seams at junior middle. You heard it here first. The difference between boiling down to welter and boiling down to junior middle is only a difference of 7 pounds. That's not a lot. Not when you consider what's Boots' walk-around weight. What is this guy walking around at? If I had to guess, I'd say this is a guy who walks around well above middleweight. 7 pounds is not a lot. And after a few fights, maybe 3 or 4, I wouldn't be surprised if Boots has to move up again. Now, do I think that Boots is going to be able to stay in character at junior middle? I think that all depends on what kind of character he was at welter. And at welter, he had a lot of time there and a lot of fights there. Not a lot of meat on that bone. Best guy that he fought was Montes Stanionis, and he just fought Montes Stanionis. So what does that tell you? So whether or not Boots can stay in character at 154 all depends on what his character was at 147. And at 147, he looked big and strong and destructive against lesser competition, which is what's not waiting for him at 154. That is a comparatively deeper division with more talented fighters in it and more threats, because at 154, he won't always have a size advantage over the people he's fighting, and size matters. I can't tell you what he will or won't be at 154, what he will or won't do. All I can tell you is while he was on Showtime, I didn't buy into the hype. That's where the hype originated. That's where it started. They were marketing Boots as the anti-Crawford, a bigger, better version of that fighter. And so many people, for hate of Terence Crawford, jumped on the bandwagon. It was never based on somebody he's fighting or somebody that he beat, unless you were oohing and eyeing that he beat Thomas Dulorme or Chris Van Heerden, Sergey Lipinets. Who the hell did he beat that warranted all that hype? All they were really doing was putting him on a pedestal so they could use him to tear down Terence Crawford. Now, all of that's in the past. And it's up to Boots now. It's up to him to live up to the expectations set before him, because by my count, he hasn't. It takes more than beating Montes Stanionis to prove that you are the level of fighter of Terence Crawford. And what is Terence Crawford? A 4-weight, 3-time lineal, 3-time Ring Magazine, 2-time undisputed champion. Is Boots gonna do all that? If you were one of these people saying that he's better than Terence, I guess that's what you're expecting. So let's see if he can, now that he's moving up to 154. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, a very disgruntled Dan Rafael took to his social media and stated, between June 28th and July 19th, DAZN has 3 pay-per-views, in addition to either the annual or monthly subscription fee. What are we doing here? Everything Boxing responded by saying, Paul versus Chavez shouldn't be pay-per-view in the UK. Usyk versus Dubois shouldn't be pay-per-view in the US. And Shakur versus Zepeda, Shiraz versus Berlanga shouldn't be pay-per-view anywhere. Is DAZN overdoing it? Is this still value for money? Because they are doing a lot more pay-per-views than they used to, it needs to be said. Documented. But while they are doing more pay-per-views than they used to, these are comparatively better pay-per-views of a better quality than what we're used to. Need I remind you that in the American market, they were putting fights like Ortiz versus Martin, Ortiz versus Ruiz, Ruiz versus Areola on pay-per-view. And you know that I don't remember Dan Rafael complaining about that when the PBC, between Showtime and Fox, were inundating the market with pay-per-view after pay-per-view via 2 major broadcasters. I don't remember him complaining. These pay-per-views, comparatively, cost less than those did, but they're more well put together, from top to bottom. My short-term memory and my long-term memory works just fine. Was Dan complaining when the PBC decided to bill Wilder versus Ortiz 2 as a pay-per-view, even though the first one was free, the first one was available to everybody with a Showtime subscription, so that the second one, that nobody asked for, should cost you $80? Wilder versus Helenius, that should cost you $80? So that when Turkey puts together Usyk versus Dubois, now you complain? Zepeda versus Stevenson, now you complain, while you watched Gervonta Davis fight patty cake after patty cake on pay-per-view. $80 every single time for fights where you already knew what was going to happen. I gotta push back on this, because coverage of boxing in the American boxing scene is tantamount to a sitcom filled with practical jokes and double standards, hypocrisy everywhere you look, and kooky characters that you can't take seriously, because I can't take Dan's critique seriously. Not while he watched the PBC single-handedly inundate the American market with pay-per-view after pay-per-view after pay-per-view, most of which was not box office worthy.
But now you complain?
It is true that the DAZN platform is doing a lot more pay-per-views than they used to, but top to bottom, these are better and more memorable shows overall than what we've seen.
I just think we're at a point where the American boxing fan and coverage of boxing in America does little more than a disservice to the sport. It's often uneven and biased,
Tribal, loaded with narratives, everybody's got an ulterior motive, an agenda. It starts to feel like you're watching a soap opera more than a combat sport, than a competitive sport, but that's how it's covered here in the United States.
Let's not pretend that everybody in America is a fan of Turkey LL Sheik and what he's been trying to do. For whatever reason, there are people here in the United States that don't like this guy, no matter what fight he tries to put together.
And no matter what fights he's already done, I reiterate, we were not going to get Beterbiev versus Bivol 1, let alone 2, without his involvement. We were not going to get Fury versus Usyk 1, let alone 2, without his involvement. And all the other cards he's put together, some better than others, but still.
What about Paul versus Chavez? That don't got nothing to do with Turkey LL Sheik. That's a pay-per-view.
Addressing Jake Paul's latest box office event. When has Jake Paul not been on pay-per-view? I mean, from the moment this kid set foot into the boxing space, his events have been pay-per-views. Whether they were on Triller, Showtime, DAZN.
They've always been pay-per-views. So if his next one is a pay-per-view, what are you crying about? It's always been that way.
I guess my entire perspective on this is that year by year, boxing has become more expensive to where you can't put it all on DAZN. Back when DAZN was trying to rid the market of pay-per-views, they got pushed back. So that when they start doing pay-per-views of their own, they still get pushed back. So it seems to me like some people aren't going to be happy regardless of what's happening.
And they're very selective of who they want to criticize and when they want to criticize them. Because for a long time, DAZN didn't do pay-per-views at all.
For a very long time, it was mostly just the PBC inundating the American market with overpriced box office fights. Now, as a customer, I don't want to have to pay more for boxing more often.
I don't think any of us do, but I don't regret purchasing Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. That card delivered.
I don't regret purchasing Fury versus Usyk 1 and 2 or Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. Those cards delivered. Matchroom versus Queensberry, 5 versus 5. That delivered.
What you're getting are stacked cards, but you can't expect them to be stacked and free.
Guess that's the moral of the story. To get all these names on one bill, Matias versus Puello, Stevenson versus Zepeda, Shiraz versus Berlanga, it's gonna cost you something.
To watch Undisputed at heavyweight, it's gonna cost you something.
I would expect it to at this point. After years and years and years of an oversaturated pay-per-view market in America, don't act surprised now. Don't act brand new.